Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of Deep Dive. And I'm really excited today because I've got someone joining us on the show that I have been a big fan of for very many years. But before we get into the interview and start looking at the product, one thing I do have to say is, if you haven't done already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell on our YouTube channel, and you will be notified every time a new video goes live. And remember, this is the Deep Dive. We will be going live every Sunday with a new product. We're going to look at that product, we're going to talk about that product and tell you exactly why it's a product you should really consider adding to your act. So this week, as I said, I'm very excited because we have got the man himself, Sir David Regal.
Sure. I love that. I've been knighted.
How are you?
Peter, I'm great. How are you? You know, I feel like we're friends, but I don't think we've ever met face to face. Is that true?
It is true. We have spoken a few times. We've sent messages. But yeah, we've never met face to face. And you are someone that I've always wanted to meet. I've been a big fan of your work.
I feel like we're, that's you to say, I feel like we're friends because I think I see you performing magic, thanks to the worldwide interweb, more than I see my own children. So in that balance, I just feel much closer to you than I feel to my own children. But in a nice way.
That's lovely to hear. I mean, the thing is, really, it's an interesting point, actually, because everything is so much closer. And it's the same with you. We've had a couple of chats on Facebook and things like that. But I do feel as if I know you now because the internet has made the world such a small place. We're seeing each other almost on a daily basis.
Well, speaking of the world, Peter, I have to ask you a personal question because we're very close. I feel I can do that now. You have probably the most distinctive voice of anyone in magic, the Peter Nardi voice, not just because I hear it a lot. So my question is, whatever part of the UK you're from, does everyone sound like that, or are you unique even over there?
Yeah, no. I'm from South London. So South London, we have got a very sort of almost Cockney accent. So yeah, I'm a very London guy. So yeah, you'll hear a few people speak like me. Yeah.
So if I'm producing like a production of Oliver, I should call you up because you're ready to go.
Yeah, if you like my accent or if you dislike it, but you want to hear my accent to the extreme, speak to Michael Sullivan, who works with Wayne Dobson, because Michael Sullivan is the closest thing to Dick Van Dyke trying to do an English accent you've ever heard.
Met Mike at some event that Wayne was also at.
Yeah, no, Mike's great, Wayne's great, but yeah, it's a London accent. And it never comes across as cool as you Americans when you're on the trailers. You've always got this cool sounding voice, you know?
Well, James Bond typically doesn't have your accent. I've noticed that.
No. Yeah. But you'll see, if you watch a London gangster movie, that's when they'll have my voice. It's not like you won't have to. Yeah, that's it. You won't have the suave Bond. You'll have the underground gangster. That's the voice. But yeah, that's enough about my background. Let's talk about you. I mean, how long have you been creating magic? Because as far as I can remember, I've been a fan of your work. And I got back into magic in my early 20s.
Well, I had a fairly typical introduction to magic in that I got into it as a kid, a preteen kid. But and I don't want this to be a boring story, but I've used magic as a very sort of special place in my life as long as I can remember. When I was a little kid, I grew up in the East Coast in the U.S., in the Boston area, and we had basements there. West Coast, we don't have basements, but the basement is where I kept all my magic stuff, and it became like my sanctuary. Like about 50% of the households in the U.S., mine was an unhappy household. So as a
Right.
kid growing up, that sanctuary was significant. And I realized even as a kid, oh, this is where I can be happy. This is where I can express myself. This is all those good things. And I was surprised that as I grew up, it remained exactly that for me. And always an obsession, a very deep love, love and affection. In some ways, they're kind of different, but and a therapy. All these things. And I worked, I thought, fairly assiduously to keep that quality in my life. Magic's what I go to for this pleasure and for this outlook and acceptance and just a place to be occupied in all the good ways we want to be occupied with an enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, because I made my living writing for TV, when something fell through the cracks, magic was always there to help me. And I never looked to it for that, but almost in a magical way, it was there to catch me. Not on just one occasion, two, three occasions, or maybe I thought I had some other gig for that year that fell through, and something in magic would happen. And so I've been protective of it, but I go to it constantly. Now that I'm older, I feel like I'm 15 again, 1-5, because it's that same sense of play I get. Because I don't look to it for a livelihood, but it has provided a livelihood on more than one occasion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, your stuff is great. I mean, the way you think about the magic as well. I remember one of the first effects I believe I saw you do was your cups and balls when you spoke. I was discussing this earlier with another magician when we were filming one of these, and back in the day there was always a lot of presentation with magic. Nowadays it seems like that's starting to slip and people are just doing tricks. But you always have a nice story, a nice presentation running through your effects. And the cups and balls ones, if I remember rightly, it started off as a story about your childhood. You had these little cups and balls, and you went into a proper cups and balls routine. But your final load, I will say, blew me away. I had no idea that was coming, and you just
Well, yeah.
lift off.
Well, let me just frame this, just because people have. You can find this on like YouTube, a very smeary video of me much younger doing this. But yes, I start off with a little plastic colored cups, and I put them away. And as you say, I use the big cups. But then it's very much like the Vernon routine. Once the big cups come out, and I produce a large load out of each of the metal cups. But then, without doing anything, I lift them up again, and underneath each of the metal cups, those little plastic ones have come back. And under each of the plastic ones is a big load ball. So it's this nice graduated picture, the finale of these objects. But it makes sense. And thank you for saying it's a nice little presentation, because magic is very tiring for an audience to watch if there's absolutely nothing for them to sort of hang on to or ride as rails. I mean, I love watching manipulators on stage. I love it. Uh, but there's a reason those acts are generally, 10 minutes or less, sometimes 6 minutes, because it's very difficult for an audience to, you know, hang in there when there's nothing, no premise, no nothing in a storytelling way to bring them along. That's why a lot of manipulative acts kind of worked out a storyline that carries the audience through even the 10-minute act. I love watching manipulation in little bits and pieces, as I think we all do. We love magic,
Yeah.
but it becomes taxing. And I went to see, and don't ask me to mention names, an act with a full evening show asked me to show up, and he wanted some feedback, which I only give if asked. Uh, and I said, it's the effects are all good in and of themselves, but every effect you do is one where the audience has no idea what's going on until the very end. It's like, oh, the 5 minutes of preamble ended up with this amazing coincidence or prediction or whatever the effect was. And I said, it's okay, there's some effects like that, but it's exhausting for an audience to have a whole evening of effects where they just have no idea, what's going on from the beginning till you finally get to the end. It's taxing. And so I feel very strongly about that. Obviously, not every trick needs a story. Not every trick needs, some formula. But we are communicating, and an audience loves being told basically what the frame is. Just like in a movie, we'll have a prologue that gets people in 30 seconds, very interested in what's going to happen in the next 2 hours. Well, I think that's what good magicians generally do. They frame things in such a way that the audience is interested and wants to know what's about to happen for the next 5-6 minutes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you made an interesting point there, or you referred to, yourself writing for TV. Now, you're a very good friend of a friend of mine as well, Andy Nyman. Do you think that being a writer for TV, the same with you, the same with Andy, do you think that really helps with the structure of the routine? I think it certainly must do, because when you're writing for movies, you've got to have those bits.
I think generally with any kind of presentation, whether it's magic or not, the premise is kind of the God, and you follow that God. And many, many times I've had a routine where I knew what the entire routine was. And in some cases, because I felt like it, I'd write out, the script. I don't think you always have to write it out if you're not that kind of performer. But in this case, I'd write out the script to see, where are the beats. I seem to discover the beats more easily when I'm actually physically writing out what's happening. The beats may be dialogue, they may be trick beats, but I like knowing what the beats are. Why am I saying this? Because I would write the whole thing out, and I had a routine, but I had no method. The method, more than once, was the very last thing I did. But as you know, Peter, I'm sure better than most, because you create so much. We get to a place, and I think this is common, where we smell the method. The method's there. It's out there. Yeah. This doesn't seem high in the sky. Not everyone can do that. We all know magicians who just come up with crazy methods and think that, that's good because it's a crazy method. Generally, I think with enough experience, you kind of smell where, there'll be a method over there. Just the way you smell a good presentation. The woman over here holding this, the guy over there, and this will be the situation. You smell. I know it sounds weird to say that. No. You're entering this place that's going to be very productive. Because I have the guy here, here's the situation. And then you sort of form the presentation based on your belief, this is a good situation, for 10 minutes of comedy or drama or whatever it is. And writing is exactly that. Writing, episodic writing, you're dealing with a known quantity. Comedy or drama, here are these characters with characteristics. And because we know their characteristics, the game in writing episodic television is to take these characters and put them in situations which will bear fruit. There'll be rich rewards for these situations. That's why they call it situation comedy, in which we're placing these characters. And that's true for drama or comedy. And certainly for a magic presentation, when there's no sense for the audience of any kind of anything to hold your interest. It's, you need people that love magic or they're not going to be interested. And it's I find curious. And I don't mean this in a weird, snotty way. It actually is curious. In real life, we possess skills that very often we don't bring to our presentations of magic. And by that I mean, we're at a party. And, there's some people over there chatting. I want to go over there and chat with them. what do we always do? We always lead off with something that sounds what we think will be interesting or provocative or humorous. We always approach a group of people, not necessarily consciously, but we're going to go up to them and say, "Oh, I had the worst day ever." And people go, "Oh, really?" And they're interested. Why? Because I had the worst day ever. Oh, I can never, ever get another puppy. Oh, and now there's it's something to me about a puppy. It doesn't matter what you say. I think I have to divorce my wife. Oh, really? Well, it doesn't matter. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. Walk up to a group of people, and we always structure our conversations that way. Always. We're going to say something that we think is interesting or provocative or engaging right at the top. And yet, even though we do that in real life, we all do it. All of a sudden, we do magic and we leave that out. That is not good. That's what should be left in. I'm here in front of you people for a reason. Today's the anniversary of my grandfather's birthday. And I'm telling you this for a reason. Oh, and whatever. It doesn't have to be a stupid story. It can be very personal. It could be today we're all very lucky.
Yeah.
Why are we lucky today? People love having those rails. Doesn't mean you need them all the time. It doesn't mean the rails have to be a story. But by rails, I just mean it's like they're on a Disneyland ride. Just let me feel I'm comfortable in the seat. And now let's go on a trip. And that's what that engagement is, again, the thing we do in real life, always.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really, you're 100%, you're right, without a shadow of a doubt. And you can see that when you perform, whenever you bring out a routine, and I know you like to put live performances on there, you can see how engaged the audience is. And not only that, you can see, especially with like the long and short of it, you've got a couple of moments in there where you're expecting the audience to notice something and pull you up on something. And you've structured it in such a way that it's very clear for them that they need to be pointing this out, that you've made a mistake, and I love that. And I always say, and this might sound a little bit rude or patronizing or whatever, but I think some people don't truly understand the magic they're performing in such a way that they don't understand where the beats need to be. What is the magical moment? And I really think to perform an effect well, to get the most out of an effect, you have to truly understand what moments will the audience find magical. What are the magical moments? I've seen so many magicians that perform an amazing trick, they perform it so well, and they brush over the magical moment and then maybe emphasize a lesser moment, and you just think, oh my God, you've just thrown that away. That was so
that's
strong.
the words I was about to say back to you. They throw it away. And you see that a lot. And I see a lot of magic as you do, but I'm only about a half hour away from the Magic Castle, so I'm there at least once a week. And you see a lot of magic. And you're so right. People that are good, they really know where the beats are. I remember I was very lucky. I got to see the late Tommy Wonder perform for lay people. It was part of, I think, a New York symposium, but a section was on a boat, and all the headliners were performing, not just for magicians, but then they'd go around and perform for lay people. So I'm watching Tommy perform his ambitious card for lay people. And talk about knowing where the beats are. We're all used to seeing those magicians. That thing comes to the top 25 times. And still come to the top. When Tommy did the effect for lay people, I think it came to the top 3 or 4 times, and each time they applauded. Each time it came to the top, it was an applause break. And I watched that happen, and I was a little stunned because we get used to seeing people just shove as much at you as humanly possible, as if that's the only way to make magic effective is to layer it on like a dump truck of effect.
Yeah.
And when Tommy did this routine of his, man, It was an education and an eye-opening experience.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I remember years ago, we were filming a card magician, very good card magician, and he brought along with him a magician. I'm not going to mention his name. Fabulous card magician. He's an underground magician. Everyone will know his name, but he didn't know who I was. He thought I was a lay person. And the person we were filming said to him, "Oh, would you mind showing Peter something?" And he said, "Of course." And he got me to select a card, got me to sign it, placed it in the middle of the deck, placed the deck on the table, waved his hand over it, turned over the top card. That was my signed card. So I thought, oh, we're going to go into an ambitious card. That was it. He literally just done that and sat back. But that's what he does for lay people. And that's enough to sort of go, you know, that's impossible, what I've just seen. And yeah, to me, I must admit, I was expecting a bit more. But, but if I was a lay person.
It's forever interesting. One of the things I really love about magic is there's no end. I mean, figuring out what's going to make something effective or make some plot a little bit different and more, intriguing to people or more impactful. That's a forever thing. And you have a trick that you've done for 20 years and you wake up one day and you go, wait a second, what if? And that's a real deep pleasure. The fact that there is no end. It's just this journey.
Yeah, 100%. So that was a great interview. We're usually just speaking about the product for 20 minutes, but it was lovely to delve into your mind for a bit. But I've actually got the trailer to the long and short of it. So I'm going to play that in a moment. And then when we come back, we'll talk a bit more about the product. You can tell us a bit about the history of it, where it came from.
That's sure.
Do
I have my dossier? I had a whole dossier somewhere. I see it, yeah.
I had, I love this. I love this performance. And like I said, Harry performed it on our social media. It got over 1 million views and I
watched
comments.
Him do it. He's such a winning way about him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, are you two related?
Yeah, he's my son. Obviously, you can tell, like, the looks and everything.
I'm just noticing there's a little hesitation before you said the word son. I don't know why. I'm not going to get into it. But you should play that back a few times and ask yourself some questions.
Right. Now, before we delve any deeper, I'm going to put this trailer on and then we'll be back. I'll see you in a moment.
As of last night, I came back from a week of 31 performances at the Magic Castle. And in every show, I performed this, the long and short of it. And in every show, I looked forward to performing it. What is it? Well, it's 4 pieces of wood in a burgundy sack. And with those pieces of wood, depending on your audience, you could explain the power of suggestion, or demonstrate quality control, explain why you flunked geography, or maybe talk about the time you bought that thing from IKEA. You could also take the approach I took.
Well, a lot of you came here to see magic tricks, I understand that. And many of you came here to hear a discussion of classical architecture. Well, in an effort to please everyone, I brought a little pouch with me, a little pouch with which we can discuss all the nuances of classical architecture. It's all in there. That's where it will happen. Ever go to Old England, Greece, Rome? All those cities look beautiful. The reason is they were designed with classic forms, standardized shapes. Let me show you what I mean. This is called the standard arch. That is the short arch. There's also a long arch. There's the short and the long. It's hard to see the size differential, but if you double it up, it becomes more pronounced. The short and the long. Short and long. They're color-coded for ease. Now that you understand the short and the long, you get the idea? Let's talk about the short. The short arch is an interesting one because we're making windows or doors. Oh, you thought this was the... Some people get confused. No, they're color-coded. This is the short, and the red are the long. It's short and long. Very clear, short and long. You can look at these just pieces of wood. They don't get bigger. They don't get smaller. Short. Oh, I'm sorry. Look at, no, you're right. And oh, you're right. I'm wrong. Forgive me, because they're also labeled, because you'd want to do that, right? These are the short, which must mean these are the long. Of course, short and long. Short is very, just you can look at them, they're pieces of wood. There are variations you can do along the way, which makes it really useful in architecture. You could have a short long, a different sort of arch. It'll always match another short long, of course. A short long matches a short long. Or you can make it a long short. A long short will always match another long short. Of course, they have to. Where it gets interesting is if you take the long short and you make that a short long. That, of course, will be shorter than a long short for obvious reasons. Now, it gets interesting, though, if you take that, take the long short, make that a short long, make the short long a long short, that'll have to be longer than the short long, even though it was a long short just a moment ago. I think because the word long comes first. I'm not exactly positive, but it's something like that. At least we know one thing. Two shorts will always be smaller than two long. It does get a little muddy, I admit that, especially when you realize each one is exactly the same size. That, folks, is the long and the short of it. Yes, we learn, we grow, we change. It was educational as well.
Yeah, too much.
What is it we do? Well, we amaze and amuse. And the long and short of it, in a space of about 3 minutes, does both.
That honestly,
It was morning after. I look so sleepy because Magic Castle is fun, but it is like vaudeville. You just do so many shows, one after the other. So, anyway, I cut you off.
the thing is, it's such a good routine. I never, ever thought I would be entertained by a routine using that prop. I've never seen a routine using that, a proper routine.
There's been many of them. I mean, it's been in the magic world for over 100 years. And it's funny because it was published in the late 1800s in a book on amazing things and nature and the world. And it's like, here's an illusion. And it was published in English in this book. And very shortly thereafter, it entered the world of magic. Will Golson, this is hysterical. This is like 1913 or something.
Right.
In this book. I pulled this out during the break. He publishes, look, this version. Look how tiny this is next to my finger, okay? He publishes the illusion. And by the way, it's very compelling. I blew that up and colored it in. I'm just going to hold it up so you can see. It's a very compelling illusion, right? But I don't know what they get. And I switched them and, it's just very, anyhow, what's hysterical is, he had a magic shop. And in the book, he says, you can cut these out. How can you perform this thing in inches? Well, and then he says, I'll actually read this to you. Oh my God, it is so funny. He says, basically he says, or if you don't want to deface the book, I also sell this for like 2 pennies at his magic shop in a normal size. If you don't want to deface the book and cut out these tiny little things. Anyhow, it's true magic, dude.
So where did you? Yeah, I mean, it has. I've known it for years. It used to be in like kids' magic books that we got. Yeah. I remember the cat one.
There's one with fish. You had 2 fish, and the fishermen are fighting, and so they cut the fish up to make the other person's fish smaller, and of course the illusion would keep happening. And recently, Michael Weber and Tim Trono came out with one that was very good and very different. But that's the one that got me thinking, it's like I was saying, you start smelling something. I thought, there's something very amusing in this world and that hasn't been done yet. And I thought, it's only 2 things I did, but it's like having more notes, in a musical scale. Those 2 little things allow for a lot more to happen, more effects and more comedy. And the 2 things I did is I doubled the number of props, but also, which allows different combinations.
Yeah.
But also, every version of this, and I have a dossier on this trick. Every version color codes the objects. Otherwise, there'd be no effect.
Yeah.
It'd be more difficult to see, because you can see it with like train tracks for children. They often show that illusion. Or, they have those serving bowls for snacks where you can see that illusion. But in magic, they generally would color code, not always, the objects. But I thought, which is essentially a form of labeling. That color is a form of labeling. Well, you could add another label, which adds to, the mayhem and the kind of insane either logic or illogic. And so that's by writing long and short on one side of these pieces, it just, gave you all these avenues, plus a way to escalate, which you generally want in a routine, to escalate things.
Yeah.
And so that was the fun. I mean, but it was just like I said to you, I smelled it, and then I went, oh, yeah, here's the road. It's like seeing the road a little distance away, and then you just start walking toward it, and it gets clearer and clearer and clearer.
Yeah,
but I'm glad you like it. I love doing it. It's not always, a sense of extraordinary pleasure that we have while headed into a routine. I'm impatient. It's one of my, deficits. It's good for someone that likes the process. I like the process of coming up with material.
Yeah.
And so it's good that I'm impatient in that regard. But if I've done a trick 1,000 times, it's possible I'll look in my case and go, oh, you again. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
But long and short, there's just something fun about it. It's like inebriating performing that trick. It's just because the audience knows, I don't know, the world we've entered, this world of Alice in Wonderland, or whatever you're going to call it, where up is down, down is up, and they know they're being played with. But we're all sort of playing together, and it's that kind of sense of fun that I look forward to doing that routine.
Yeah, and even if someone out there did know the illusion, it's still an entertaining routine. That's the thing.
Oh, even if they know the illusion, they still get twisted up in a knot.
Yeah.
They still get twisted up in a knot because just like in magic, we get fooled by things we know. Even with illusions, you get fooled by things you know.
Yeah.
Because that a knot is placed on a knot, and a knot's placed on that knot, and it just becomes, this really bizarre series of amusing events.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, the two things you added are the genius things. I mean, the illusion's great anyway.
What things?
They are the genius things.
There's sounds around the internet.
But the adding of...
We don't use that word. We don't use that word, but I'm glad you like it. For me, Peter, and I'm being sincere now, I do it to do it in magic. I do it to do it. When I do put things out that are sold, I do want them to be profitable. Why? Because I want to keep doing it. And if they're profitable, I don't have to make an excuse to my wife. I don't say, honey, bad news. I do it to do it. And with this, I had no idea if it would be embraced or not. I'm not a great prognosticator in that respect. But so when you said 1 million views, it made me very happy, because it's like when you write for TV, the next morning it airs. The next morning you go, wow, a couple of million people laughed at my joke, or whatever it is. So in the case of magic's one of those unique art forms, performance forms, that delivers what it delivers with great efficiency. So there's your son. In less than a minute, he's doing this lovely job with this trick. And I love thinking 1 million people look at this and a smile is on their face. Yeah. There's just something really rewarding about that. And I like feeling I'm connected, to the world in that way. And look, what we love is kind of oddball. We all love it. I don't know if it's a bug, like they say, or if there's some intellectual reason that at least I don't understand, but we love this. And for me, success is how many people can I make slightly less miserable? I'm in the make people less miserable business, whether I'm writing, for this show or that person or for some magic effect. And it took me a while to realize, oh, that's the business I'm in. Whatever I'm doing, I'm attempting to make people less miserable, which is, it's a big business.
Yeah.
The biggest
Yeah.
businesses in the world. The entertainment companies are really, I know they're big corporations, but they're trying to make people less miserable. Oh, I spent 2 hours in this movie theater and I came out less miserable. I want to do that again. So magic has a way, like music can, with the right singer and piece of material. Magic can very efficiently turn people around and give them the sense of pleasure and satisfaction. And so I love, seeing your son doing that trick and just imagining, all over the world, someone's nudging someone else and saying, go over here and look at this thing. It's nice. I'm sure you have the same feeling. Knowing you're contributing to something that hurts nobody. And when you're lucky, there's a lot of people, an uplifting sensation.
Yeah. Totally agree. So I've got a few questions I'm going to ask. These are sort of pretty quick fire questions. I know I'm keeping you.
It's diet fungus. Is that the question?
No, I've never had. Is that sparkling?
Is it? It's sparkling. It's caffeinated. It's like having orange juice in the morning without that pesky juice.
So
early for me.
What is the time? It's 8:30 your time, isn't it, or 9 o'clock?
Well, we started an hour ago. It was 8:30. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So with this trick, how long have you been performing it?
Well, as you know, you have to be pretty confident in the bones of something before you make the leap into having it manufactured, because it's not fun having something made that is wrong. So my process is kind of nutty. I do write things out. I do them for myself. Then I start making videos and sending them to some people and talking about it and going over it with people. And then I'll do a Zoom session with a bunch of people. And so I'm not a professional performer. I don't know if that's clear. I perform at the Magic Castle a few times a year. And that for me is perfect. It's perfect. And I used to be ashamed of that. There was a time in my life when I was with a comedy group, I performed more than my magic friends. I was performing constantly with this comedy group. And then as I got older, I realized, what I'm in love with is the process. I really enjoy performing. Hopefully you could tell from that clip, I really enjoy it. But I love the process. And I used to be ashamed of that because in magic, the thing I love is not really what people think is a thing. But in all the other performing arts, it is. I like coming up with material. So in the world of music, there are songwriters. No one says, how can you be a songwriter? No, you can be a songwriter. And in theater, there are playwrights. If you're up there saying the words, how can you? No, you can be a playwright. Well, magic, at least in America, is still very young. And we're only just now having people, the late Ricky Jay, but Derek Delgadio and Helder and Ossie Wind, these shows that are really waking up the American audience. So this is a performing art. It always was, but in this country, it really wasn't, seen that way until we had some of these people doing these shows. So in that sense, who's this person that likes, coming up with these, routines and material? Where do they fit in? Well, took me a long time to sort of admit that to myself and articulate that to other people. It's for whatever reason how I'm wired. I love the process. Same thing with writing. When I was writing sitcoms, that is like, Monday, here's a giant table full of problems. It's going to shoot on Friday. And you spend all week, the group, trying to solve these problems. With magic's very similar. Here's this idea. I don't know how it's going to work. Look at all these problems. Can we untangle these problems? So anyhow, I love performing, but I'm addicted to the process, which would be terrible if I was a full-time performer. If I was a full-time performer, I'd have my 5-minute act, my 10-minute act, my 30-minute act, my 45-minute act, my hour-and-a-half act. I'd have all those things, and I would work them to death. But that's the way I'm wired. I like writing material, and in magic, part of that is coming up with methods. And that's why, I don't know if you know, I was one of the producers and the head writer for the Carbonaro Effect, a TV series.
Yeah, I had heard that. I haven't seen it, actually. I've heard loads of good things about it.
Well, Michael Carbonaro is brilliant as anyone can be in that role. And the role was not a magician. So it's interesting. I would tell the production company, stop calling this a magic show. Even though Michael is a magician, in the context of the show, we did things had to be happening in real life. Our mark was a hidden camera show. Our mark had to think the world is a little different than I thought this morning, whether it's a product they're being shown that has a unique attribute or they're experiencing deja vu. It's really happening for them. If they thought Michael was a magician, we couldn't use the bit.
Yeah.
If they thought they were seeing a magic trick, we couldn't use the bit, which cuts out about 95% of the magic repertoire, because if you open a magic catalog, generally the premise is, I am a magician, I'm showing you a trick. And we couldn't have a magician, we couldn't have a trick. And out of that, we did over 100 episodes. And the best days, people really were having their belief systems affected. The world was shifting under their feet. And Michael's brilliance was, he could be absolutely believable and genuine, and be, in some ways, a participant along with the mark. It's as if he didn't know what was going on either. Of course, it's with a wink to the viewer, but he underplayed in all the best ways. And so you can find clips on YouTube. And for me, the reason I brought up, it was a perfect job, because it was comedy, it was magic, and when would I ever find those two things? And it was process. This is a very difficult show to make for everybody, because so much material, over 100 episodes, mostly original effects. So it's constant process for everybody. And for me, it's exactly what I love. So I still feel funny telling people that's what I love, but it is what I love. I love the process.
I think, I would agree with you on that, because I'm the same. I love the process. I don't really go out and perform much anymore. I still like creating. I still like watching other people's acts. I have a few people come to me and show me their stuff, and I tweak it or help them along with it. I've done TV consultancy, and that's where I love to be. I love solving the problems, exactly the same as you. And it is, it's a part of our art form that I suppose people that buy tricks and perform don't have to really think about. But there are people, like you said, behind the scenes that get joy out of the creative method and, the creative process, putting these things together, ironing out the problems. And, what you said about working on a TV show and 100 episodes, I can't imagine the material you burn through. That's a lot of work. And remember, on TV, you can only do it once as well. Once the trick is done, you got to have another trick.
Well, it was interesting on that show because season 1, it got enough traction. It was a cable show. It eventually went to Netflix. But think a small cable show, it needed an audience to survive. And we got a big enough audience that first season. And every magician said to me, oh, you can only do this one season, because we're doing so much material, sometimes 7 different effects in one episode. And they were wrong. And the reason they were wrong is they were thinking like a magic catalog. Here's your fire effects, your liquid effects, your rope effects. And we did no card effects, 0. Not even things that really were card tricks, but we did it with slices of American cheese. No, 0. And so it's very, very, everyone had to be imaginative, and everyone had to sort of think in a different way. But the reason we didn't run out, because it was a show about challenging a person's belief system. Yeah. And that was really what the show is about. And we get pitches from magicians that'd be very often good tricks. And I'd say, but what does the mark think is happening? And there was no answer to that question. But for that show, that became the vital question. What are we making the mark think? And we went to some very deep places. Not every bit was a big bit. Some were just that product with an unusual attribute that's crazy impossible, but they believed it. But the larger bits we did, and there's at least one in an episode, were things like we made someone believe that when they were 7 years old, they were psychic. We made someone believe they were seeing a mermaid. We made someone believe that through an accident, they were invisible. And they weren't happy about it. Very deep things. We made people believe in hell, and that's serious for people that, are kind of religious. When they think hell is on the other side of the door, it's not a good day. But Michael, very, very kind man, and we put people through some, emotionally charged situations, but because he didn't really want harm to anyone. He didn't want anyone to be upset. One of his superpowers was talking them down when he had to reveal at the end, this didn't actually happen. We're actually, having some fun. He's not mean, and the show was not mean, but you can see, these deep exhalations sometimes when people are told, "No, don't worry, that nun didn't really, float and then disappear." Getting these people down and ending it with a hug was, as I say, one of Michael's superpowers.
Yeah, well, that's going to be my viewing over this weekend. I've heard so many good things about the show. I'm gonna watch them all.
Well, it's a fun show. I mean, I like watching it. And normally, when you work on something, you don't rush to watch it, but I do rush to watch this show. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard he's incredible as well in it. So I'm going to be watching that, and I suggest everyone that's watching us goes on to Netflix and watches it as well. Well, David, thank you so much for joining us on the Deep Dive.
My pleasure, Peter.
And it turned more into an interview about you rather than the products, which I'm very happy about, actually, because this is the first time we've actually spoken face to face rather than just on Facebook. So
I've no one else to talk to, Peter. No one doesn't want to hear this stuff. So this is like a therapy session for me.
Well, we're starting up a thing called the Alexam Monthly Jam. We had it a couple of years ago during lockdown, and I'd love to get you on that for a more in-depth interview on you. But before we go, what's planned for the future? Any little secrets you can give us of future products or anything?
Well, I never would want to say something's ready if it's not ready, but I'm always working on something and trying. It doesn't always bear fruit.
Yeah.
But sometimes I spend a couple of days, cutting things up, putting in magnets, measuring. And I go, is this really going to fool anybody? But other times, I'll tell you one, and I'm not lying. It's just happened. Why am I hearing all of a sudden a tide? It's like your house is floating away. I mean, whoosh, whoosh. Did an appliance turn on in the last minute?
Oh, this is my laptop. It is.
Oh, it's your fan.
Yeah, it's an Alienware thing, and when the fan goes off, it sounds like a helicopter.
It does. It's hovering over your house.
Yeah, it's really.
So
loud.
I'm not lying to you. So I really don't like tooting my own horn, but something amazing happened. Oh, am I frozen? Are we there? Okay.
Yeah, no, we're here.
I just froze on my side. So I sent a magic friend, and this is a good magician. This is a pro magician, very knowledgeable. I sent him this card trick. I said, well, this is something I'm working on. And the impossible thing happened, and he thought it was a joke because I didn't have a spectator there. I said, this is a random card. And then something happened with that random card, and he thought it was a joke, and he wrote back, ha ha. I said, no, this is a real thing. I really didn't. And then he started doing another bit about it. Well, I think it's the Framity that worked with the Snemity. He's like, everything was a bit. And I said, oh, geez. Really, it's a trick. And if this went on for like 6 or 7 things, and it never had a satisfying conclusion. And he just kept thinking I was joking. And I wasn't joking. I really did the trick. And then it happened. We were on a Zoom session, him, me, and several other magicians. And I was showing people the trick and how it worked. And he went, "Oh, is that what you were showing me?" And I said, I honestly was a little confused. I forgot I'd shown it to him because, as I said to you, I send things to different people. And sometimes I forget who I sent it to. And he wrote me back this text message. He goes, "I want to apologize for giving you so much crap. I honestly thought you were putting me on." So that makes me happy because that goes, okay. It fooled him so badly. He thought it was a joke. And so that, I'm working on. I have to find out if I have to be able to sell enough to pay for making it. It's one of these things that costs a lot to make, so I have to figure that out.
Brilliant. Well, I can't wait to see what you come out with next. You're always, you're a very active creator. I mean, you especially recently, you've had a lot of things hitting the market, and
COVID
one of them,
helped,
each one of them has been, as you would expect, a great working piece as well. And I know some of the stuff that's coming out now is not stuff you've just created now. It's older stuff that we're bringing back to the market, maybe with new tweaks and touches. But you've got
combination, yeah.
Yeah, you've got so many great effects. And I really can't wait to see what's coming next. I really can't.
Well, hopefully it'll all work out. One never knows. But I'm just, I'm glad I have this this our world, in which so many people contribute, and that's the way I look at magic. By the way, it's not a competition; it's a conversation. And in a lot of ways, what's great about magic is it can be a true meritocracy. Where I used to hang out in New York, all the magicians, young and old, was a restaurant on Saturdays, and it was very cool. If a 16-year-old kid came out with a different false cut that was good, you'd have 25 magicians hanging over that table because it didn't matter if it was a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
He had something interesting. And that's what I love about magic. It really is this conversation. As you can see, like the long and short of it, the conversation started 100 years ago, and it's still going on.
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, for me, this has been such a great interview to finally speak to you and hear your thoughts. I'd love to get you back, like I said, on the Alexander Monthly Jam, where we can talk a bit more as well, because you're so knowledgeable. Your passion for our art is very obvious. You're one of my favourite creators. Everything you do is commercial.
I need to make love to my wife right now. Sorry, what?
I am your number one fan, David. I am your
thanks,
number
Peter.
one fan. Whenever there's...
Stuff,
Sorry?
I love your stuff.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You actually gave me a quote for one of my tricks once.
Good.
I think. Yeah, I think you said, "Don't show me anything ever again." It was something like that. No, no, it was my eye change. You gave me a very nice quote for it, and a couple of tips for it as well, which was really good, really appreciated. But thank you so much for joining us, David, and thank you for bringing out incredible effects. The long and short of it is such a great effect. It's such a bit of fun. It's so entertaining, and you've only got to watch that video to see how the audience are reacting to it. You've scripted it perfectly, the timing, the beats, everything. It is just great. It really is. It really is. I'm not just saying it. It is great. And we love it in the shop. We're demming it in the shop. The customers are loving it. And obviously people on social media are loving it. So it's great. Really, really good.
Thanks, Peter. My pleasure.
So thank you, my friend. And I will let you go now. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully we'll talk again soon, David.
Yeah, I'm around.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Guys, so that's it for this week's this week's deep dive. I want to say a big thank you to David Regal. I mean, that turned out to be more of an interview with David about himself rather than a trick. But do you know what? I really enjoyed it. I've been speaking to David for, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so on Facebook and different places. We've never met personally. This is the first time I think we've actually spoken face to face. And I've always been a very, very big admirer of his. And to actually get a chance to speak to him and listen to his thoughts and, you know, the way he handles things or the way he thinks about things has been great for me. And I hope it has been for you. And remember, before you go, if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and that way you will be notified every time we go live, or alternatively we put up a new video on our YouTube channel. But thank you very much for watching the deep dive. And remember, that product we were discussing was The Long and Short of It by David Regal. If you haven't got it, do yourself a favour, pick it up. It's self-working. David's written the scripts for you. You're going to have an entertaining 3-minute piece for your act. So until next week, guys, I'm Peter Nardi, and thanks for watching The Deep Dive. See you soon and have a great week.